Thank you, viewers, and welcome from a very, is it cold, but really quite warm and sunny Nairobi morning. And today, we are truly glad to meet the co-founder and the CEO of BasiGo. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Jit Bhattacharya. I'm the co-founder and CEO of BasiGo here in Kenya.
Yes, why BasiGo?
Why BasiGo? BasiGo stands for Bus Go, and it's because we really wanted to create a movement around sustainability in the public transport sector here in East Africa.
You know, these are things that we read about and we hear about from other countries. Let's go back.
Yeah.
How did you start? What was the entire concept, and how hard was it for you to get into it?
I have been working in the area of clean energy and sustainable mobility now for over 12 years, starting in the United States, in Silicon Valley, where a lot of this technology was first created. I've been working here in East Africa for the last 4 years. And I was inspired, me and my co-founder were both inspired by two things that really drove us to start BasiGo. The first was learning about how East Africa, and this region, is one of the global leaders in clean energy, where as over 90%, many days, over 90% of our electricity is already coming from clean renewable sources. I mean, there are industrialized countries that dream of getting to that level of percentage. It's already happening here in East Africa. And that was incredibly inspiring for us and tells us as we're able to electrify more parts of the economy, it's going to have enormous impact on climate and the environment. The other moment that really inspired us was in the very first few days of the COVID pandemic, which was a very frightening time, an incredibly painful time as we were all coming to grips with, this was March of 2020, what is the world going to look like as a result of this pandemic? And an interesting thing happened here in Nairobi where for a period of days, the government forced the public transit buses to stop as well as many of the trucks. And in a matter of days, the air here in the city completely cleared. We were able to see a crystal clear blue sky. We were able to see Mount Kenya from the city, a glimpse of Kilimanjaro from the city, hundreds of kilometers away. And that, it gave us a glimpse of what would happen if we could finally get a handle on our transport emissions problem and the way it's contributing to air pollution here in this city, especially when we think of Nairobi as a leader, an economic leader here in a growing East Africa. Well, we know it's not going to happen if the city is just choked with air pollution. Those two instances, those two learnings really inspired us to say, the technology is ready, let's find a model by which this can work here in East Africa.
These are things that probably even up to this point, they kind of look futuristic. But then I think we are in Nairobi, and in Nairobi we've kind of learned to kind of move into the next step very fast. And maybe that brings down into the question of why Nairobi? Why Kenya for you?
Yeah. Why Nairobi? The ecosystem, a lot of it is driven by that one fundamental fact about Kenya, how green our electricity already is. That means if we are able to introduce a technology like this into the transport sector, if we're able to drive it towards sustainability, and I've been looking at this for a number of years, both as an investor as well as an engineer and as an entrepreneur. If we're able to drive this transport sector over to sustainability, it actually has greater impact than almost anywhere else in the world, simply because our electricity is already so clean and green. So that is one of the fundamental motivations for why starting in Nairobi. But the other reason, it's a business motivation. If you look at the way in which the public transport sector here in Nairobi and in Kenya works, it aligns very well right now to the state of the technology. We all know electric vehicle technology has come a long way in the last 10 years, right? It is the future. Everybody acknowledges this is the future. We know that Nairobi is getting there, and like you just said, Kenya has a history of leapfrogging. Let's not go incremental. Let's go to the future today. Let's go to the future right away. And we saw that opportunity, especially with electric bus technology. Technology that has come down in cost over 50% since 2010. Technology that has improved so much that we see an opportunity for an electric bus to be able to meet most of the daily operating needs of bus operators here in a really affordable and reliable way. And so Nairobi and Kenya becomes, in many ways, the perfect crucible for us to bring a technology like this into Africa and to have it work and to demonstrate its business viability, technical viability, and environmental impact altogether.
So as we speak, you've just maybe a few weeks back did a big launch, and now, but what is the model that you are going on with in Kenya?
Yeah. It's a very good question, because we are bringing a brand new technology, and so there are a number of problems that need to be solved. And we've designed BasiGo to solve many of those problems in parallel. So the first is we partnered with BYD. BYD is the largest manufacturer of electric buses in the world. They're an incredible partner. Their buses are currently operating in 50 countries and 300 cities around the world. We are bringing this state-of-the-art technology here to East Africa, but we're tailoring it to make sure it can work on our roads and in our use conditions, right? We have unique bus operating conditions here compared to much of the world. So we work with BYD very closely to make sure the buses can work here and work reliably. Second, we have to develop the charging infrastructure, right? Now we have a very clean electricity. We also have excess supply of electricity on our grid. But that's not enough. We need to make sure that the charging is there and available and reliable for the bus operators, so that this requires no behavior change on their part. They're running a business. We need to make sure that we're enabling their business and ideally improving their business. That means making charging very available and very convenient. Similarly, we need to build out service and maintenance. And so we are building an expert team of electric vehicle service engineers for this brand new technology, in order to make sure that should anything ever happen to any of these vehicles, they can be back on the road almost immediately. That is the baseline of what we need to do in order to introduce this technology. But even those 4 things, those are not enough. After all of that, we have to overcome the fundamental problem with any clean energy technology. And this is something that me and my co-founder have direct experience from our previous business. We were working in the pay-as-you-go solar home system sector, a sector that has brought electricity to over 1 million rural homes across Africa through innovative financing and innovative technology. The most important thing we need to do for these clean energy technologies is address the cost problem. For this technology, the upfront cost of an electric bus is more expensive than a diesel bus. But the operating cost is very low. The cost to refuel with electricity, the cost of services and maintenance is much more affordable. But with the upfront cost being that expensive, it makes it very difficult for customers and bus operators to adopt. So the most important thing that we are doing here at BasiGo is we've introduced a model called pay-as-you-drive. Pay-as-you-drive is a unique financing model. It's based on a model that's been trialed in other parts of the world in order to increase the adoption of electric buses. What we're able to do through this model is we actually sell an electric bus for the same upfront cost as a diesel bus. Okay? So there's no difference to the owner. The same way they go and buy a diesel bus, they can actually afford to buy an electric bus. And then what we do is we charge them a subscription per kilometer that they drive every single day. That subscription basically gives them access to the battery, it gives them access to free charging, and gives them access to free service and maintenance with our expert service and maintenance personnel. It removes all the risk of this new technology essentially from the owners. All they have to do is drive. Okay? In this way, we can actually make that subscription cost less than what they're currently paying for diesel and maintenance. That's what we talk about when we say improve their business. We are understanding the economics of the bus operators here and saying we can use electric and use these benefits, make the upfront cost affordable, but then still save them money in their daily operation. That's the goal. And that's what we're doing at BasiGo in order to help spur the adoption of this technology.
If you look forward, now that you're already operational, what are some of the kind of bumps that you you're kind of getting ready for?
Well, yeah, when we talk about the model, of course, it sounds like all problems are solved, but that's never the case. We're an early stage company, and a lot of what we are doing right now is we are pilot testing the very first 2 electric buses here in Nairobi. These were the buses that we launched a number of weeks ago. We have piloted with 2 pioneering SACCOs here in Nairobi. The first is City Hoppa, and the second is East Shuttle, both on the eastern side of Nairobi. And every day right now, these 2 buses that we have brought into the country, they are in operation, in passenger operations, carrying passengers on their daily commute, carrying them to where they need to go in eastern Nairobi. And with every kilometer these buses drive, we learn a little bit more. How are they performing? what are some of the modifications? These are the first ever electric buses to carry passengers in Kenya. We have a lot to learn to make sure the technology actually meets all these requirements that we are targeting in order to improve the lives of bus operators. So we are learning this. What is it like when this bus actually goes into operation? What are some of the bumps that we're encountering? Honestly, the most important bump, or the biggest bump that an early stage company introducing a technology like this into the market. We are competing against an industry that has been in place for over 100 years. And we're talking about automotive, right? And combustion engine automotive. We're talking about the oil industry and sales of petroleum and diesel fuel. Here we're bringing in a new technology that's trying to compete head to head with that. But we're still very small. How do we compete? We know we can compete when we get to scale, but it's going to take us some time to get to scale, to get that number of vehicles every single year sold, to get to local manufacturing, which is critical. We want to make Kenya a hub for local manufacturing. All of that takes time, and yet we're in a hurry.
Yes.
The climate cannot wait. Our air quality here in Nairobi cannot wait. So we're in a hurry, and yet we know that these things take time in order to build. So that's the greatest speed bump we're faced every single day. How do we move faster?
Yeah. No, when I really look at the choice of the location where the route that these trucks are going into, it kind of looks very, very different, because you kind of look at green buses to be more on the greener side of Nairobi. But then also, it also means that you're also going right in the center of where what we call matatus are really everybody's mode of transport. Maybe what would you comment about that?
One of the most surprising elements of what we are doing for passengers, for drivers, and for bus operators is they get onto this bus, and it's such a high quality bus compared to what we are accustomed to in the traditional matatu industry here in East Africa. This is a modern, state-of-the-art electric bus that really, beyond just being electric, represents the future of what commuting and public transit should be like here. Many people get on this bus and go, can I afford this? Do I deserve this? Can I afford this? The fares on this bus must be astronomical. And then what they're asked for is the same fare that they've been paying on their diesel bus this entire time. For this technology to work and to have the impact that we want on reducing climate emissions, on solving our air pollution problem, it has to work for everybody. Buses are currently the most affordable and accessible form of transport here in the city. They're responsible for 40% of all passenger trips. We can't come in and create a luxury product that's only for the wealthy in the nice parts of the city. This has to work for everybody, and that's been part of our mission from day number one.
Okay, what we also got to notice is that in your launch, apart from BYD, I think the government was there, Kenya Power, which of course kind of people say, okay, what is the importance of this kind of partnerships? Working with government, working with a company like Kenya Power, BYD, to deliver on some of these goals that you have?
The relationship with government is absolutely critical. We cannot build a business like this independent of partnering with government, with the national utility, with KPLC, with KenGen, with everybody involved in the electricity sector. We have to always remember we're working in the public transit space, and the public transit space is tightly coupled to government planning, urban planning, the vision that government has for the city and what the citizens of the city want. We have to work within that framework always in order to make sure we're providing the technology and the service in the right way. So that element is very critical, but also safety. The government's job through the National Transport and Safety Authority is to ensure that this technology in any public transit vehicle is operating safely. And that's such a critical function, and we need to be completely part of this, especially as leaders in this brand new technology. It has to be safer than what we have been using before. And that is absolutely the case with these electric buses. But then when we look at the power side, we are in this situation where we have clean electricity, we have excess supply in the grid, but it's critical that that power is in the place where it's necessary. We can't just deploy high power chargers anywhere we want. We are now going to all of a sudden create local demands on the grid that maybe the grid is not prepared to handle. We're in a position where, as our business begins to scale, we can become the largest consumer of off-peak electricity between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. for Kenya Power, which is, it's an extraordinary opportunity for Kenya Power as well. I mean, this is something the grid actually needs. But in order to make sure that we are doing that effectively, we need to work with Kenya Power from day number one to ensure that we're deploying in the right place, that they're prepared with the grid infrastructure to support us growing as one of these very large, high-power electricity consumers. So these partnerships are critical for us as we think about how this business is going to grow and meet the reliability expectations and actually charge reliably when we get to a fleet of hundreds and thousands of buses here in the city.
Let's talk about the charging infrastructure. What are the plans you have?
Yeah. So right now, the way that buses here work in Nairobi especially, buses will operate along the main arteries, and the different bus operators, the different SACCOs, all receive a particular route. And they have very conveniently set up relationships that they're able to park these buses along their routes. Oh, yeah. It makes it very easy for drivers. Drivers just are able to appear, get their bus, and then put it into operation. When we think about charging infrastructure, it has to be that convenient. The bus operates all day, they drop it off at the depot along their route, the bus charges, it's there, full, in the morning, ready to go. And so when we think about charging infrastructure, this is exactly what we do. We work with our clients to say, how are your current bus operations working? We are going to deploy charging infrastructure to be as convenient as what you're currently accustomed to from diesel.
Now, being the first is always, it's good, but also comes with many challenges. Were there some bumps as you were setting up? And this could also be even on the regulation side, NTSA, government. How did you sync all these things so that the vehicles are on the roads now?
There's always bumps. And yet one thing that I have been incredibly inspired by and encouraged by in this process of bringing these very first 2 electric buses here into Kenya is the level of enthusiasm and the level of support from the entire community involved in transport, the entire transport ecosystem. We are working on a problem that everybody wants to see solved. Passengers, bus operators, government, everybody wants to see this technology future arrive, and so everybody is incredibly supportive. Of course, there are bumps, especially with a startup. You have your plans, and what happens? Things always take longer. They always take longer. There's been a lot going on in the world in the last number of months. Procuring technology, supply chain issues, the end of a pandemic. All of these are bumps that you have to overcome. You have to build your startup in the way the world is, not the way that you want the world to be. And so, but we managed to overcome them, and that speaks to the power of our team. And you build a startup in many ways on the back of your team, because you know nothing will ever go perfectly smoothly. But if you have a strong team that works together, that is able to solve problems, the bumps don't matter. They're all in the rearview mirror.
Now, I think really we've been following what you guys are doing, and in November last year we got news you raised $1 million, and just last month 4.3 million just before you launched. Yeah. What's the importance of that? But then, for lots of entrepreneurs, they keep on asking themselves, how can I raise $100,000? You did 5.3. Give us something, maybe what you've learned as you went through that process.
It definitely helps that this is my second time on the entrepreneurship journey, and I think you learn something new every single time, and yet that experience, especially on the fundraising front, always helps. We are in the global investment community, and I came from the investment side as well. In the global investment community, there is a strong focus now on anything that can have climate impact, because we're recognizing we're running out of time, right? The level of investment around this on any idea that can actually have immediate impact on emissions and start to get a handle on this problem, start to turn the corner on our global emissions, there's a lot of investment support. And so we are thrilled to have two very strong venture capital funds behind us, leading our seed round. The first is Novastar Ventures, an impact fund out of the UK, but with an office and a presence here in Kenya, which gives validation. They understand how the market here works. Oh, yeah. They understand the business risks. And so having an investor like that leading our seed round gives confidence now to international investors. So we were able to supplement our investment round with capital from Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley that recognizes the power of the technology, the power of financing models, especially to scale these renewable energy technologies. And so the second investor that really came into the round is Moxie Ventures from Silicon Valley. They're on their second fund now, and their second fund has a strong climate focus. And so we are so excited to have these two investors behind what we're doing, recognizing the power of our model. And I think the advice that I give entrepreneurs, and I focus a lot on the climate tech entrepreneurs, because I hope many entrepreneurs, the talented entrepreneurs, are coming in wanting to make an impact in this space. In many ways, we need all the brain power in the world working on this problem right now if we're going to have a hope and a prayer of solving this climate crisis. The biggest advice I give them is aim big. Look for big impact on emissions. Look for big impact that can help places like Africa now adapt and be resilient to the impacts of climate change. That's what investors want to see. And if you aim big and you have a strong business model behind you, even if there's a lot that needs to be proven, people are willing to give you that chance. Investors are ready to come into Africa now. I've been so encouraged by seeing the increased venture capital investment that we're seeing right now in Africa. I think this speaks volumes about what's happening and how Africa is going to be the economic growth engine of the coming decade. There's extraordinary opportunity here, but we need to aim big if we're going to compete in the global market for capital.
Let's talk a bit about your team and putting it all together and what you really plan going forward, because yes, you just started, the pilot is going on, but then in some 6 months there'll be a bit more that is required to be done in the company.
We have an extraordinary team. We have an extraordinary team of passionate individuals who are here because of the mission of what we want to accomplish, which is transforming public transport, starting here in Kenya, but then in broader East Africa, and ideally across the entire continent. They are committed to that mission. One of the interesting elements is, like you said, being first has its advantages, but it's also difficult. Being first means we're still in the very early days of the electric vehicle industry here in sub-Saharan Africa. You can't go out and say, oh, well, I want somebody who's been working in the EV industry for 10 years. That doesn't exist here in Africa. So what we need are talented individuals who have been working within this space, in the areas of renewable energy, which has been in operation here and growing for the last 10 years, working in automotive, and saying now, come in with a passion to learn, a passion to contribute, and then in the process of us building this business, we are going to build that strength and that capacity that we need in order to be able to execute that business model. And I'm so proud of the team that we have pulled together, who only a handful of them have actually had direct electric vehicle experience. And now they are one of the strongest e-mobility technology teams here on the continent. And I can say that without a doubt.
What you've seen in some of the countries is that the government regulation and the way maybe the government dials. So talking about those Scandinavian countries, China, is there something that government can do here to facilitate the fast adoption of electrics?
Definitely, and the Kenyan government is already doing it, and you're starting to see this with governments across East Africa, and that is the creation of a national electric vehicle policy. Okay, so for those of us who have been first into this market, one of the problems that we've had to overcome, one of the speed bumps, is the lack of a national electric vehicle policy. So that when you're importing a technology, how do the standards bureaus, how do the safety authorities evaluate this technology and say, yes, this is safe, yes, this is meeting the requirements of our roads? The creation of that policy is something that Kenya has kicked off, which is fantastic. It's exactly what the industry needs. It creates the enabling ecosystem for that. I think the second is just recognizing this is an opportunity. And this is an opportunity. This is going to be a massive transformation in the region, a massive transformation on the continent. That's an opportunity for us to establish Kenya, establish East Africa as a manufacturing hub, as a leader in the technology space, right? And that's an extraordinary opportunity. How do we create the right policy environment, the right incentives in order to make that happen? And this relates directly for me, the area that we're especially focused is around local manufacturing. Okay? Kenya already has a fantastic policy around encouraging local assembly of vehicles, and especially new vehicles, and it's something we believe in. We want to move to complete local assembly of these vehicles, and it's something that our partners at BYD also support. And so we're very eager to move in that direction, and we're happy that the Kenyan government has already created an environment where there's extraordinary benefits for us to be able to locally assemble these vehicles.
What would be maybe some kind of deliverable, or okay, what kind of goal do you have so that maybe at some point you can say now, we'd like now to do local manufacturing?
We are starting that already. We're not waiting for any goal. For us, it's the other way around. We want to get to local manufacturing of these vehicles as quickly and efficiently as possible. And we see it as a critical milestone for us in order to be able to achieve our broader goal. Our broader goal is over 1,000 electric buses operating in Nairobi in the next 5 years.
Okay.
In order to be able to do that, we actually need to build a local assembly capability with partners here in Kenya.
Now, that one of those capabilities is people, and you've just talked about it. But maybe, is there something that can be done? Because we are kind of starting this journey in terms of building capacity of engineers, electrical guys, and all these people who can understand the technology.
Yes. There is something that can be done. I would also say that it's already being done. I think if you go to the local universities right now across East Africa, if you go to Strathmore, University of Nairobi, Makerere in Uganda, what will you find? The students who are in engineering school right now, they're not looking to learn about combustion engines. They're looking to learn about batteries. They're looking to learn about power electronics. They're looking to learn about electric drive systems and how these electric vehicles work. When they emerge from school, they are hungry to get into this rapidly growing industry, an industry that's growing across vehicle classes. The youth are driving us there. They know what the future is. They don't want to be working on the legacy technology. They want to work on what vehicle technology is going to look like in the next 5 to 10 years.
You've talked about the new plant, but then what else are you going to invest in, and what you really want to achieve in the next 5 years?
We are in this business in order to have massive and rapid impact on climate change and on air pollution here in East Africa. Okay? In order to do that, the most important thing we're developing is this financing model that I described that helps bring down the upfront cost of this technology while still helping commercial vehicle operators achieve an operational benefit. If we can demonstrate that in the bus industry, there are so many different directions that we can take this. Okay? We can take this across bus sizes. We can take this to other cities across East Africa. We can take this to other vehicle types, other commercial vehicle types that are not necessarily buses. That's what we actually need to achieve. It's not just about buses. This is about transforming transportation to be more sustainable. That's where we ultimately want this to go, and that's where we're investing our time and our energy.
Mr. Jit,